important for Sam and for me that we were making sure that Althea and Digby, our teenagers, emotionally relate to 21st century teenagers. That was just very important. So every bar of music, every line that's happening, we're always talking about, well, if they were walking down the street today or floating down the street today, how would a teenager today respond to them? And how could they take that into their own life? And these were the questions we were asking us. Floating became very much something we had to find. We had to understand it.
And I suppose the powerful thing about something like this is that floating is obviously a metaphor, so it can become whatever it needs to be. And I don't mean that glibly. I mean that, you know, you, as an audience member or a listener, hopefully you can see whatever you want to see into the floating. Clearly, it's a very specific response on Althea's behalf to trauma.
But we were saying some people crawl under the table when their fathers are shouting.
Exactly.
So this was our answer to the father shouting, the little girl crawling under the table, or the little boy running into another room and picking up his iPad so that he doesn't have to hear how the parent is responding to him.
So it's not the case, for instance, in the story literally that Althea is, say, anorexic, but nevertheless it's interesting that that is what somebody thinks about her, and hopefully within the idea that, you know, she's retreated from the world and she's floating, we can explore all kinds of issues like that and contemporary issues like that.
Some people think she's high as a kite. She's on drugs. That's why she's floating. Some people think she's bulimic. And they do body shame her. They do. She is so light that if you let go of her ribbons, she will just keep going till she incinerates. That's just taking light to a different level. There is a lot of bullying going on in Lagobel. They don't accept her, and they don't have any compassion for her. Sometimes we get so involved today in how we feel. And they do have trolls in Lagobel. They're definitely trolls.
They do. They exist. She becomes a scapegoat for all of their small-mindedness and their hatred and fears about their own lives. She's patently very different. And because of that, they feel that they can abuse her, that they can take out all of their own frustrations about themselves and their own position in the kingdom on her. So she becomes a kind of hate figure. And like the rest of the characters, that's a journey for them. They are forced into looking at themselves and their own responses to her and what she does and their own role in things like the fact that she was imprisoned. She was imprisoned because the king became embarrassed because of their apparent outrage, which is a very kind of false outrage, really. She had no impact on their lives at all when she was 6, but because she couldn't ride and she couldn't fight and she couldn't do all of the things that apparently a young princess is meant to do, everybody kind of got very tabloid and up in arms about it.
I think being a teenager is very difficult. And the fact that King Darius, to bring her down, does something so horrendous. Now, most parents would say, well, we would never do that. We might not take it to that place, but we can be good people and yet make bad decisions as parents. And all the while say, but we're doing this because we love you. This is the right thing for you. You will ruin your life if we don't step in. And King Darius essentially says that, doesn't he? He says in the solution, if I don't do this, you could be completely destroyed. You could destroy us all. You could not just destroy the family, you could destroy the kingdom. And so he justifies what he's doing to save not just her, and he thinks he's saving her. How many parents the world over say, you're doing this, I'm making this decision for you because it's the best decision, and you will thank me. Now, as parents, we know that. As teenagers, we remember it as well. And we felt we had to be true to teenagers. This is not a story from the point of view of a 5-year-old. when 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds play dress up as teenagers and pretend they're teenagers and princesses and princes. They're still doing it from an emotional place of a 5-year-old. These are teenagers. And so we had to be true to the teenage experience.
It's a piece about working out who you are and how you fit into the world and what you love and how you express that love. And you know, that moment where she goes to the lake, she's running away. And I think that's a universal thing. I think at one point we all go through that as young people, where we either actually do run away or we consider it. And she runs away, and that was something we discovered very early on in the writing, actually, that she got to the point where she couldn't take it anymore, where things were so difficult and so hard for her, and she'd been so badly treated that she has to leave. And that is what Darkest Hour, the song where she takes herself into the lake, is all about. And then in running away, she discovers something. She finds hope, and she finds a new opportunity, and she finds a new way of living. So running away for Althea was the right thing in a funny kind of way. She's saved by that act. But absolutely, we really wanted to explore the idea that this young girl had actually got to the point where she had to flee. It is a really important subject, and I'd argue that actually most fairy tales, or most interesting fairy tales, go to those places. The characters are often so compromised that they're kind of living in a world of death. Death is a very kind of present subject. The idea of mortality is very present in all fairy tales, and I think, you know, it was something we landed on very early, wasn't it? Which was that we looked at the lake, I think, and this story is inspired by a story by George MacDonald. We looked at the lake and we wanted to really kind of work out what it meant and why it was there and what it was for. And quite early on, we landed on this idea that Althea saw it as a way out. And it's a very specific place that she goes to. She goes to the lake. She's considering suicide, and she goes to the lake because the lake is the thing that keeps her country alive. So in going there to apparently kill herself, she's making a really, really big statement. It's an act of punishment towards her father and towards her kingdom for the way they've treated her.
When a teenager is driven to choose death over life because things are that horrible, and they have gotten that bad. And she felt there was no other choice. She did not want to stay on Earth anymore. She didn't want to live if she had to continue with what her father had planned for her. So the song No H2O, the song Darkest Hour, those two songs were really, they tell the story, I feel. It's important you listen to them together.
And of course the tragedy of something like that, and of somebody doing something like that, is that they often don't understand their position in the world, how much they're loved, how much love they've got to give. They're not accessing those sides of their life. So there are things that Althea doesn't know about herself that she's yet to discover. And you know, in the formal structure of a fairy tale, she does discover those things, but that is part of her tragedy, and hopefully at that point of the story, we understand that, you know, she shouldn't be sending herself off to the lake to kill herself because there is so much to live for, and she's got so much spirit and intelligence and fight, and she needs to access all of those things. And happily, the lake gives her that opportunity, and she gets a second chance.
There's always a little bit of religion lurking around if I'm involved. The Lagabellans are suspicious people, and they believe that her floating, they see it as not an ability, but as a disability, or that she's been possessed by the devil. You know, it does remind me of congregations across the United States that can take their religion a little too far, and they become very judgmental. There is no compassion. There's no idea of Christian understanding. There is a lot of that. And they vilify her. And so we're back to the bullying, and they bring up Satan, and they bring up the idea that Perhaps she flies because she's possessed by the devil. Now, she would look at them and say, I don't fly, I float.